Just when you think you have everything answered for you, Westworld just drops more questions. Welcome back to Real Shift. My name's Joe. This is my official Season 3, Episode 4 review and recap for Westworld, the Mother of Exiles. This was a big episode, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it any longer. Let's just get right into it. This episode featured a huge twist, and I'm going to get into that twist in just a minute. Before I do that, I'm going to talk for a second about the return of a character from previous seasons that we haven't seen yet up until this point in this season, and that was the Man in Black, William. When we first see William in this episode, he's having a bit of a psychotic breakdown. And apparently it's related to all the trauma, obviously, that he's experienced in his life. So you have everything from his brother-in-law having an overdose to his wife killing herself in the bathtub. And then, of course, him killing his daughter, but thinking she was a host and that she was some kind of trick being played on him, but it was actually his real daughter. So he's been through quite a bit. So when we're introduced to him in this season, you see him basically having mental issues. He's basically cracked at this point, or is at least starting to crack. But he's seeing this vision of his daughter. And I'm assuming this is basically his guilt. A manifestation of his guilt, I guess. He's questioning himself and whether or not he was actually able to do this. Like, is this something that he is capable of doing? Because he doesn't feel like that he's capable of doing it. So there's even a question in his mind whether or not he is actually real or not. And the daughter vision even brings that question up to him, actually basically asking him, you think this is all, your choice. And that's a big theme, I think, to this season so far, is that they're basically creating these parallels between hosts and humans and almost making it seem as if they're interchangeable, or you can't tell the difference between them, because sometimes humans are stuck in these loops just like the hosts are. And I think that's really interesting, and it's really played up here in the reintroduction of the Man in Black. So basically, I think this is him, though, basically trying to justify what happened with some kind of rational explanation, because he doesn't feel like he is capable of doing this, and that's killing his daughter, obviously. Or is it possible that he's just an evil guy? It could be that as well. So both of those possibilities are raised. And this brings back Charlotte back into the fold, because she actually shows up right before William is about to kill himself. And this is all happening in the introduction to the episode, so it doesn't even take long to get this huge amounts of information packed in. And that's kind of what Westworld is known for. They like to pack a lot of information into a little bit amount of time. And that's why this episode in particular was, I think, the most difficult to follow of any this season. I thought this season was pretty straightforward up until this episode. Now it's kind of throwing them curveballs out there, and it gets a little bit harder to digest everything, especially after one viewing. But this is the reintroduction of Charlotte. And basically she's coming to William because she needs she's telling him that she needs his help. Tells him about how how Delos is getting bought out. William apparently put his faith in Charlotte to protect the company, so he's a little bit angry at her that she wasn't able to do that. But Charlotte needs him, or she tells him she needs him to basically come to their board of directors meeting or whatever and vouch for her and her plan to basically have this secret investor, I guess, save the company and make sure that they're all still in control by the end of it. So this is where William basically comes out and says, we need to find this mole, whoever released this information. Little does he know, of course, it was Charlotte, or at least the Charlotte host that we've been seeing. William sees his daughter again right before he leaves the house, because basically he's getting himself together or whatever. And William tries to resist, basically saying, I'm going to put these events behind me. This isn't how, this isn't what I want to remember about my life or whatever. But she basically tells him, this is going to persist. This isn't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And the things that you've done, you're going to have consequences. And this is going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And that's really a somber way to look at things, but when a person like him, who has done so many bad things, like it makes a lot of sense that those horrible things are now coming back to haunt him, literally. So I thought that was all. I thought that was a really cool reintroduction to the Man in Black, aka William. And I have to say too that it was a brilliant bit of acting too. A lot of moments in this show, as far as he goes, brilliant acting. Like everything from the smaller moments with his daughter to the moments where he's flipping out and tearing the house apart. I think he did a great job. And that's Ed Harris. I was trying to think of his name. I couldn't think of his name for a second. But yeah, Ed Harris does a brilliant bit of acting as William, specifically in this episode. And he's definitely one of my favorite characters in the show. I think I've been waiting for him to return this season. I was wondering in what capacity that would be. And I think this is a natural progression for his character. I mean, he's going to be feeling some type of way after all the trauma that he basically has self-inflicted on himself. But he's going to have repercussions to that, and it's mental repercussions. So I think that's a pretty good way of making of the continuation of his character. So as far as Charlotte goes, she knows about William's conversations with his daughter, and these conversations are essentially in his head. It's not really revealed how she knows that, but eventually she reveals her true self, and I'm not going to talk about that just yet, but there is a big revelation about who she is, and that'll come in a few minutes. But yeah, basically, as far as the Man in Black goes, that was the majority of his story for this one. Then we get Maeve, who we have a little bit of a conversation between her and Serac, and basically Serac is trying to convince her of why she should be going along with his plan and wanting to take down Dolores. He tells Maeve about her daughter and how she's stuck in this system that Dolores has the key to, and that how her daughter could possibly be in danger or stuck in there forever or held against her will or whatever the case may be. So that's his way of basically convincing Maeve to go along with his plan. Through the course of this, Maeve eventually starts her investigation into finding out where exactly Dolores is and what her plan is. And she starts this little mini investigation of her own, and it eventually leads her into basically the underworld of the city. And she comes across Musashi, who, if you don't remember him, he was the guy from Samurai World that she kind of bonded with, I guess you could say, but also left behind, if you remember. I'm a little hazy on how that relationship actually ended. Again, it's Westworld, so there's a lot going on. But he basically tells her that Dolores freed him, and that now he's like basically the head of the Yakuza in that city. And this is where Maeve basically comes to the realization that it's not actually him, and she even asks him, like, are you Teddy? Now, Teddy has come up a couple times, I think, especially with theories, because it's been assumed up until this point that at least one of the people that Dolores has made, or one of the humans that she replicated into a host, at least one of those people has Teddy inside of them, and it is Teddy. But by the end of this episode, that's kind of basically blown out of the water, and there's this mega reveal in this episode, and I'm going to get into it right now because it's definitely something that I've already looked online, and it's getting differing opinions, I guess. Some people like it, some people don't. And that's going to come with pretty much anything, I think. But the mega reveal is basically that Dolores has copied herself, and she is basically living inside of Charlotte's body. She's living inside of Makashi's body, and she's living inside of Connell's body. And basically inside of Connell, she's using him basically. She used him basically to steal all of Dempsey's money to, I guess, fund her little revolution or whatever she's attempting to do with that money. I'm not really quite sure yet, to be honest. She uses the returning Makashi, who was last seen in Samurai World, like I said, but she uses him basically to thwart Maeve's I guess, onslaught towards her, and it comes down to eventually Masashi, I keep saying Masashi actually stabs Maeve and leaves her, she's left for dead, basically. We don't know what happened to her, but she's laying in a pool of blood, so Maeve is kind of up in the air right now as far as like what she's going to be able to do moving forward. I think what this proves basically is that Dolores doesn't trust anyone. And I talked a little bit in my previous reviews about how maybe she was kind of starting to come around and starting to realize that maybe not all humans are bad and all. And I think some of that might still be true. But when it comes right down to it, I think, and Maeve said this too, she basically said, this isn't for everyone else, this is for you. I think now more than ever that Dolores is doing this for selfish reasons, and it's not really to free everyone. Because if that was the case, because this is another point that people bring up that don't really like about, you have the control units that she smuggled out. Like, what's to come of those now? Because it was assumed that she was going to be taking them and putting them into hosts, and that's maybe what the copies were. But now it's like, are they really free? Because she's basically just, she has them. She's basically using them as her pawns in this revolution. So, like, are they really free? Is she really freeing anyone? Or is she just using them to gain leverage? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it appears, it makes it look as if Dolores is being very selfish now. And, or that she's always been selfish. Especially with in the case of where she replicated everyone. But what's funny is that, and I thought it was well executed as far as like they have all these cross cuts with different events happening across the city, but they're all being revealed to be actually Dolores at the same time, which I thought was really cool. So she's basically taking out all of her enemies at once, almost in a Godfather type way, which I thought was pretty cool actually. She sees herself, like she uses herself in these different bodies to basically ambush her enemies. So she neutralizes Bernard and Stubbs, who basically were trying to figure out who she already replicated, or copied I should say, through Dempsey. So she neutralizes that attack. She steals Dempsey's money with Caleb, again using Connell and his knowledge of the finances of Dempsey. She stabs Maeve with Musashi, who basically, that puts a wrinkle in Sirach's plans to take down Dolores, because Maeve was his, main pawn in that plan also. So she basically stopped that plan from happening as well. And then you have Caleb, who is now a very loyal follower, much like Teddy was at one point. But you have to wonder, for his sake, he better not question her, because we all know what happened when Teddy actually eventually questioned Dolores. So could the same thing possibly happen to Caleb eventually? And it is presumed that Caleb's a human, so that's like a human element that she has on her side. So it's a benefit to her, but how long before Caleb starts to question her methods? And that's only time will tell, I guess. But, and then you have the whole committing of William, and that basically gives her an edge in the fight for Delos, I guess. So all of this combined, oh, and it also, I guess, is revenge on William too. Another selfish thing. Like she basically orchestrated this. Yes, she's gaining leverage with the Delos situation, but she's also extracting revenge on William, who she still has a lot of ill will towards, and for obvious reasons. But so yeah, this episode, it started off like it was going to be a very William-centric episode, but in all actuality, it's more about the reveal of Dolores and her plan, and the selfishness of her plan, I guess. And I think it's a little bit shocking, because like I said, within the past couple of episodes, like I've been kind of changing my mind about Dolores a little bit, but this episode just kind of reverted me back to how I originally felt about her, and how it's difficult for me to look at her in a favorable light and to want to see her succeed. Like, I don't like the character. I didn't like the character of Dolores last season, and I went into this season expecting not to like her more, and then like through the course of the first few episodes, I was kind of like seeing things a little bit more from her perspective. But now again, they reverted me back to, she's just being selfish, and she's just doing things for her own good. It's not really about the other hosts and freeing them. It's about what she wants and her taking over the world. She wants to rule the world. It has nothing to do with the other hosts. And maybe Maeve, if she survives this attack, maybe she can be the person who eventually is the savior for the hosts. That could be. But at least from my perspective, I mean, I know Serac isn't exactly a likable guy either, but from my perspective, I think Dolores is the clear-cut villain of this story now, because this episode just changed my whole perception about her. And, you know, like it or hate it, I think it was not something I was expecting, but at the same time, I do like the decision. I think it works. It fits her character. You tried to throw a curveball in there. You tried to get me feel differently about her, but in the end, I end up feeling exactly how I started to feel about her, and now I feel that way about her again. So, yeah, this was an episode that was definitely about the big reveal, and it's a reveal that I think worked. A lot of people aren't digging it. A lot of people saying minimizes the whole smuggling of the other hosts or their memory banks out of the system. It makes that kind of null and void. And I don't think it really makes it null and void, but it definitely makes you question what is she using those hosts for, or their nodes, or whatever they're called. So yeah, as far as Westworld goes, season 3, episode 4, I still dig it. I still think this season has been a bit of a return to form for Westworld. I've been all about it, but I think this episode was a little more confusing than the first 3 were. I will say that, but I wasn't expecting to be Westworld, I guess, to be so straightforward through the whole season. So it had to turn at some point, and throw us for a loop. Because to be quite honest, I was just confused by the end of it. I went and read some recaps of it to try to see if there was stuff that I missed, and it's a difficult show to review after just one viewing, but we do our best here. But yeah, that's my review of Westworld season 3, episode 4, review and recap. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments down below. Where do you see it going from here? Do you like the direction that the show's going in? Let me know. Please, as always, like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next week right here for another review and recap. Talk to you later.